I am going to be painting rocks with you today, and this is just absolutely one of my most favorite things to do. I would say I would call it a hobby, but it's more than a hobby for me. It's more like mental health, and I don't know, it's something, I just love painting rocks. And I have chosen these 5 rocks for you. And I'm kind of doing this video as a little bit of an introductory video about rock painting, kind of like I did with the Zentangle. And so I'll try not to move too slowly for those who sort of feel like this stuff they already know it. But I do want to give some basic information that I am asked a lot from my friends and family and others who want to know how to get into rock painting. So these are some of the rocks, and I chose an assortment here to give you an idea of what kinds of rocks can be painted. The answer is any kind of rock can be painted, but there certainly are ones that are preferable for doing designs or writing words or whatever. So this is a rock that is kind of porous. It has a fair amount of little divots in it. You know, little places that look broken, that's fine. These little divots here are fine. Everything about that. I like this background color. It's like a brownish gray, and it's a nice shape, and it doesn't sit perfectly flat, but it sits pretty flat, or I can turn it over and it wobbles a little bit, so I probably will paint this side as the top, and it doesn't flop too much. This one is a sweet little round rock, just small and adorable and white and not very porous. And this one is like, you know, like your standard rock, just very plain, ordinary. This one has a lot of striations in it. It's really relatively heavy compared to its size. It's a very heavy stone, and it has a lot of striations in it and that kind of thing, but it's still relatively smooth, all things considered. It's a pretty smooth rock. I hope you can sort of see that the texture is pretty smooth. And then this last one is the smoothest of them. And it's a really smooth black rock that has kind of a little dent on the side, and you know, so that's a really nice smooth rock. So all of these types of rocks can be painted, and what you're not seeing here that I tend to not paint very often are extremely jagged rocks. And I've seen other people paint them, especially like into really grotesque faces and characters and things, and they really make, like, you could do this, like make something out of this, like a face, and they use those, and I've seen other artists use those rocks a lot, and they're so cool. I aspire to be able to do it as interestingly as they do, but for me, the thing that is, you know, relaxing about it and makes me connect to the rock, etc., is, I don't know, something different about the feel of it, the size of it. I love a rock that just fits perfectly in my hand. You know, I don't know. Everybody's got their preferences. So the first step in this process was that I washed the rocks, and I scrubbed them lightly with a little brush just to get any extra junk off of them, because I collect rocks all over the place, the beach, you know, sidewalks, wherever I may be, and you never know when a dog has peed on it or somebody's carried it around or whatever, and just, you know, rocks are dirty, so I don't want the grit, and I don't want the you know, the dust and stuff to fall off of the rock, the dirt to fall off while I'm painting it. So I give it a nice wash and brush with a light brush in the utility sink with just dish soap is what I use. So they're nice and clean, and then I've let them dry, just laid them on a towel like this and let them dry, and now they're all dry. So my next step is that I'm going to paint them all a background color, in this case, for the sake of this particular demonstration and how I want to paint the rocks. I'm going to paint them all black as a background. And so let's talk about materials, because another set of questions I get often is, well, what kind of paint do you use? And I use acrylic paint. It's really just craft paint. Here are 3 different versions of black paint that I use to paint rocks, and I have no preference. I just pick up the one that I see first. This is black colored gesso, which they call a surface preparation. It's a little different than paint. Gesso has a little bit more of a matte and flat look to it, and so this is a really nice foundation for doing for painting rocks, and you're not going to see the rock through it. This one, it says outdoor acrylic paint, so this one might last better outdoors. If you were really being specific about wanting to be able to put your rock outside later, you might go for this one. And this one is black acrylic paint, and it's just craft paint, right? So any of these will work. And I'm not that picky, and I don't want to pay a lot for things for paint. So that is just gives you an idea of what the options are. And I think today I'm going to go with this one. And what I do is, this is part of the fun for me, is I put all the rocks together like this, and I just go around and I pour the paint on top in like a little blob for each one. Dab, 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 like that. And I forgot to do something, which is that I really like to use this mat. I'm going to put it under here right real quick so that I use this as my little painting mat. And I like to use that as a surface just so I protect whatever might be underneath it. Okay, so I've put a little blob of paint on each of these rocks, and now I'm just going to paint that blob. Oh, look, see? It's messy business, this painting. And so now I'm going to take a brush, and this is a standard acrylic paintbrush. No, nothing special. You could even just use an old brush of any kind. For this part of it, it just doesn't matter. And I'm going to paint the gesso black on each of the rocks, just spreading it around nice and evenly. Some people like to paint the whole rock, and some like to paint just the front of the rock, and I do both. It just depends on the style and the type of painting I'm going to do. And for today, I'm only going to do the fronts of them. It does take a little longer when you do front and back, because you've got to let the front and the back dry. And so, you know, and you can't wait for one to dry while you paint the other, because it's upside down, and, you know, you get it. So, I'm just painting here the whole front side of this rock, and I try to get the edges at least to be straight, but I don't pay too much attention to it because I am probably going to like put a little border around it when I'm done. So there is that one, and I just put it over to the side and go to the next. And if I run out of paint on one, I steal it from the next one, or if I have extra on one, I take it over to the next one, because some rocks, like this one, is a small blob. This one's a big, small rock, big blob. Big rock, small blob. So I just share the right paint between them. And I don't even have my cup of water here with me, because for this part of it, I don't need it. I'm not rinsing my brush or anything. I'm just getting this black on here as a foundation, as a background. Like this. Nice and covered. Push it over to the side, and let's go with the next one. Wipe my fingers off a little bit. Yeah, this one has a little more paint than I need, so when I'm done getting it where I need it to go, I'll sort of take my paintbrush and side of my paintbrush like this and drag the paint off and just add it over here. So that it's frank. The real truth is I don't want it to take so long to dry. If I leave the extra paint on there and those big blobs, it's fine. Eventually it will dry, and then I can just paint over it, but why? Right? I don't need all that paint on there. So I'll share it over here. Push that one over. And paint this little guy. So cute. I'm such a sucker for a tiny, perfectly round rock. It's like I'm always looking for the perfect rock everywhere I go. There's one, there's one. My pockets are always full. And I saw the cutest thing. It was like a rock collector's apron. And it had, I don't know, like 100 small pockets. And it was more like a field jacket that you might wear, you know, out to do a safari in or something, like that style of or a fisherman's vest type of style. But it had little tiny pockets for all the rocks. I just loved it. I was thinking maybe one day I'll do that. All right, this one I'm going to move over and then go back to this great big one. And hopefully I have enough paint here. I think I do, but if not, I'll just put another blob on there. I sort of like my rocks to be only the tops painted sometimes because I like to see the rock underneath when I turn it over. I like to see what did the rock look like before it was painted. I think that's just cool because I'm not trying to make it look like something it's not. I want it to look like a rock. It is a rock, and I like that it is. And so, and I also recognize that my painting on this rock is not going to last forever. It'll last a long time, but it will not last forever. And this rock has not been in this shape, size, or condition its whole life. And it won't be in this shape, size, or condition for the rest of its life. It's only, I'm just intersecting with this rock's life for this short period of time. And in the time I'm intersecting, I'm adding this layer to it. But one day it will end up back on a beach somewhere, and this layer will have been long washed off. And this rock might get split in two and turn into different things, and maybe someone else will find it one day and paint it again. And I often do, sometimes people ask me, you know, do you feel bad picking up rocks from the beach, etc.? And I do and don't. And so I'll say that I respect the wildlife, I respect the impact of removing things from a natural site where the ecosystem might be threatened by removing rocks. That said, there is no shortage of rocks on this planet. There is no shortage, there never will be. We are not running out of rocks. And new rocks are always being formed. And so it is a renewable resource. And I'm not anxious about a negative impact on the earth. Perhaps the paint, you could make an argument that the paint might have a negative reaction on the earth, and that might be true. But I wouldn't start with rock painting as the place to tackle that problem. You know, these are small, they're likely not going right back into the earth. They're likely going to be on someone's desk or in their dresser or in a pocket or in a purse or, I mean, any place but right on the earth. Again, maybe they will be. I might hide them right back on the earth, but then they'll be picked up and moved and etc. And so I'm not spending a lot of time dwelling on taking a rock out of its natural habitat and the negative impact that that's going to have on the environment. If you have other thoughts, I'm happy to hear them, but that's where my position at this time. Okay, so the next step in this process is to let this paint dry. And it doesn't take very long, but it does take a few minutes. So it's best just to put it to the side, just pause, and often when I'm doing lots of rocks, like a project, I'm just moving them through the process, in groups. Like I paint 10, then like this, and then 10 are drying, and I'm doing the next step with the next 10, and so I'm moving them along in more of a mass production kind of operation until I get to the actual design, and then it's just one at a time. But for this stage, you can do a whole bunch of them, and then by the time you've painted your last one, the first one's probably dry. This is my best example, this little white one here. It's already starting to dry, and you can tell it's dry because it's no longer shiny in those places. So we'll just pause for a minute, let these dry, and I will be back with you very shortly. Okay, what we have here is 5 dry rocks, a little bit of paint on the bottom, not a problem, barely an inconvenience, not a problem. Okay, but they're all dry now, and so the next step is to think about what I want to do with the rocks. And I know what I'm going to do for the rocks this time. Oftentimes I don't, but this time I do, and so I'm going to start with this big one. Let me say that, okay, let me talk about the tools next. So I have 2 favorite pens for this, and what I'm going to be painting on this rock, I'm going to use pens for as opposed to paintbrushes and paint. Okay, I have that also. But there's a certain type of work that is best, I think, having painted rocks now for years and years and tried nearly every pen available, or pencil, or markers. I've tried everything. And so I want to show you, before I get into it, I want to show you a couple of different things and why I use this tool over that tool. this is what I would have liked to have known when I started. So here's a rock I've painted where I have painted the background with yellow paint pen, a large tipped paint pen, and then the white lines are done with one of these markers, and I think it's probably this one. It's a Posca, P-O-S-C-A is the brand, and it's the smallest nib pen. There, I put it like that so you can sort of see the nib itself. The nib itself is made out of nylon, I think. It's very sharp, like it's a sharp tip. It leaves a really fine dot. I've not found anything that I like better for this consistency of line weight and cleanliness almost. There are other ones that are okay, but the paint comes out a little thicker, and then the nib becomes clumpy too soon, and it's real hard to keep them clean, and then that clunkiness transfers to the rock, you know, sort of mid-painting, and I don't like that. This is another one I do like. This is Artistro Paint Pen Extra Fine Point Multi-Surface, that's what these little words say, multi-surface quick drying, and it says water-based. So this is a water-based or acrylic pen, paint pen. And this one is as well. It's the writing is in Japanese on this because I bought it on the internet from a company that shipped it. And for whatever reason at that time, that was cheaper. Now, I just opened this up today, and I had it in plastic. I like it, you know, in its original wrapping, and so I opened it up because I wanted to show you a perfectly clean tip and how nice and nicely fine a perfectly clean tip is. But I don't have very many of these, and I'm not sure that whether they were cheaper when I bought them this way or whether there was something else about them that I liked. But I only have like one or two, and so I anticipate they're going to be just like my other Posca white paint pens. So, this rock I showed you has this kind of tip, but it looks to me like the paint pen was a little older. It might be this tip, but it's a little thicker than I would like sometimes. I like to be able to do something really fine from time to time, and I find this tip, clean tip, works the best. Now, here is a rock that I'm going to contrast with that one because this rock is painted with paints, little bottles of paint like this. You know, I've mixed colors and I've used paint in almost all of the sections. And I can just tell because I know the colors. It looks to me like maybe I did the yellow and orange in paint pens first, and I can also sort of see the marks in between. You know, it's not perfectly opaque. But this is perfectly opaque. You see there's like no striations in it, nothing, you can't see through it at all. This one I think I had painted purple all the way up, purple there and purple here too, and then I painted over it in green, and so you can sort of see that purple behind there, but only I know that's why that's like that. This purple was mixed paint that I used. It's not from a paint pen. But these letters are paint pen. And all of the outlining is paint pen, a black paint pen. So now this, I could never have painted this with a paintbrush because every letter is done pretty finely, and then it's outlined even more finely with a very fine tip paint pen. Maybe I could have, with the steadiest hand ever, used a really tiny fine tip paintbrush, which I do use from time to time when I really want to focus, you know, for some reason, like really super intensely. But there, I could have used one of those. I know I didn't, but I might have, is what I'm saying. I might have chosen to do that instead, but I would have been painting forever because it's just hard to get that kind of, at least for me, to get that kind of accuracy with a paintbrush. Now that said, I consider myself to be pretty strong with a pen in my hand. Like almost all of my art involves having a pen in my hand. So that is I'm more adept with a pen than a paintbrush probably is a good way of, another way of saying that. This is just another example of the same project that I did, which was around Here Comes the Sun. These rocks, aren't they darling? This was like just when the pandemic was kind of, people were starting to go outside again, you know, and summer was coming along here in Seattle, and oh, it was such a fun, it's not that long ago I painted these, love them. Might still be a few for sale if you like them. They might be on my Etsy page, so if you like those, check it out, depending on how soon you see this video. Here's another one where I used paint pens for the entire thing. No, I couldn't have, because I don't have paint pens in some of those colors. So some of it's paint pens, some of it's paints. And I just painted all around the bottom of it. Real rough little houses. Isn't that cute? You could totally do that. That is just little houses one by one. Alrighty, so I wanted you to see some of the differences in the types of paints and what you can do with a paintbrush. This is paintbrush. Totally paintbrush. Whereas this is paint pen. So does that help? You sort of see what, I don't know, maybe just different colors, more layering, etc. Okay, on with the thing. Sorry if I took you off track and you didn't like that, but if that's not what you came for. All right, well, here we are. So I've got this nice big heavy rock, and I painted half of it black. And what I want to do is create a rock that someone else could color in. All right. So, I was going to do a design, kind of like a mandala. And so, if you've seen me do this type of thing before, some of it I do quite freehand. This is not an instructional video on how to do mandalas or how to measure things and get them accurate, because so much of what I do is simply by eye and I just do things, you know, the way I do them. So anyway, you'll see little splatters. This is one of the things to know about this paint pen. One, I can slow down. I needed to slow down is one of the things that those splatters were telling me. Another thing that those splatters are telling me is that I'm pressing too hard because I'm getting friction with the pen against the rock. And so now I'm getting all these little splatters, which I don't like. Ooh, just did it there again. The other thing those splatters are telling me is that there is a divot in the rock right there. There's just a low point in the rock right there. And when I go down into that divot with my pen at that exact angle, it causes splatters. You see? So I'll come back later and touch that up if I don't like it in the end, but which I probably won't. But anyway, I'll come back with black and touch that up. But that's what that's telling me. So I need to slow down first to try to avoid it, and also pay attention to these divots and just build confidence with how I'm going to handle, there's a divot, how am I going to handle those divots when they come so that I don't end up with more splatters that I have to sort of deal with later. There, that's the one where I got splatters because I was kind of fast and pressing down in that corner. So I'm just building this flower up a little bit, and I'm trying not to make the spaces too small throughout this thing, because if someone else ever were to color it in, including you, you might not appreciate that there are these itty bitty spaces. You know, so I'm trying as a coloring rock project, which is sort of what I'm calling this. My goal is that someone could color it in and would not struggle with the size of the spaces. Sometimes I see coloring books where the spaces are so tiny, and I think, I know there was a time in my life when I really loved that, but gosh, it is so hard to see those spaces. I just can't. I mean, I wear bifocals. I'm supposed to wear trifocals, but since I don't work at a computer very much anymore, I haven't paid attention to that much. So I currently, you know, have bifocals, but I'm thinking maybe I need to consider going back to trifocals, because the distance that this is from my face is about where a computer would have been, probably. And I'm doing a lot more of this work lately at this distance, you know. So what I'm doing here is this technique we call aura in Zentangle, which is to draw outside the line just like that. I also like the word echo. I use the word echo a little bit more in my mind because that's It's the first word that comes to my mind. Is it's like a little echo right there, you know, like, or like ripples in a thing, in a pond, you know. Shoot, see, I'm getting those little things, but no biggie, no biggie. This is rock painting is pure joy for me, and the most fun I have with it is giving them away. I just love it. I love to hide them. There's something about the dynamic of hiding rocks and not knowing who's going to find it. Not watching them. I don't like to stay and watch them find it. It's awkward for me. I certainly don't want them to walk up to me and say, "Oh, thank you." I hate that. I don't even want that. That's not the experience I'm looking for whatever reason. Oh, I think I forgot something here. Anyway, I'm just going to add another one there as I think it looks like it wants one. Anyway, I love that feeling of hiding something. Someone comes along and they have a moment. And that moment is feeling lucky or feeling like they're special in some way. It hardly matters who they are. Occasionally a grumpy old man or somebody just like, I don't care about that. Just throw it back in the dirt, you know. No offense, grumpy old men, but you know, or somebody just doesn't get it. They don't understand, and they're like, "Why is that rock there? It's somebody's rock," and they don't understand that they could take it, and that's okay. I mean, I understand that concept of rocks out for people to take is not always known, so some people would not enjoy that. Oh, see, here I am actually making these spaces a lot smaller, just because I'm babbling. I wasn't paying attention. I was just kind of going by what I thought looked nice, and now I've got a whole bunch more spaces that are smaller to try to color in, if that's what this ends up being. It's also really beautiful as a white design, right? This kind of white paint on a black rock is so striking. You can do a lot, and I probably will after I get to a certain point of demonstrating this as a coloring rock. I probably will decorate it a lot. I'll like decorate it myself, and maybe I'll have time to do that on this video with you, or maybe another. So anyway, I love to hide the rocks, and I love to have them find them and feel special and feel like they have gotten a special treat. And I really like to do that with messages of hope and positivity or thoughtfulness or compassion or something. And it is unbelievable the kind of feedback that I get from doing this. It is as if, I mean, I have had people, I had a woman who was a shopkeeper, and one time I just left a rock for her in her plant stand outside of her, oh, I didn't mean to do that, so now I have to fill it in. What is that? Let's see what I've done. Oh, it's this. Darn it. Anyway, she found the rock that I left her, and she was so appreciative of it. Then another time I came by, I didn't know about that, of course, and then another time I came by, and I had a rock in my hand, and she said, "Oh, what?" I said, I'm hiding rocks today or something in the neighborhood." She said, "Oh my God, is that you?" And I said, I don't know. What do you mean?" She said, "Oh, did you hide a rock in my plant stand?" And I honestly didn't remember doing it. And I said, yeah, I did. And she said, "I found that rock on a day when I was about to close my business and give up, and I was so depressed and la 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 la, and it said, 'You are strong,' or something like that, or 'You are enough.' Something." And she said, "I just sat down and wept and felt like it was a sign from God or a sign from something that the universe was on her side, that she was going to make it and she was going to be okay and whatever." And I mean, that feels so awesome, and it's free, And I can do that. That's something I can do, and something you can do if you're into it. And it's so much fun to walk around the neighborhoods and hide rocks. You get to know neighbors sometimes. I do it in different business districts, put them on the windowsills of the businesses. I take them to the beach and hide them on the, park benches or wherever. I just take them wherever I go. I usually have a little box of them in the car at all times. And, these days I do a lot more selling, painting and selling rocks. And so I have, sort of caddies of rocks that have been sold, or not sold ones, but ones that are not sold yet, but they're listed on my Etsy site. And so I keep those around, but then, if they don't sell, I like to keep inventory moving, so sometimes I'll take one out and take it with me and give it away and then close that listing, or I leave the listing up because I can always make another. But at any rate, it's just a joy to hide them, just taking them with me and leaving them for people. So that's why I do it. And I also love to give a rock to a friend, or if I go to a party of any kind, take one as a housewarming gift. It's amazing how touching it is for people. And people don't bring housewarming gifts anymore, It's just everyone's so casual, and so it's just such a great opportunity to say thank you to someone for opening their home, which is such a gracious thing to do. And regardless of whether they're, they do it in any kind of, whatever way they have you there, it's beautiful. And I think we are so private in ways now, and also public, right? Does that make sense? And I'm not judging, or I'm trying not to. I'm simply saying, I think, I have to reflect on this a little bit. But I think that in our connectedness, we are also lonelier, because it's so much easier to keep up with people through our Facebook and Instagram and etc., that we don't actually reach out to them and talk to them or spend time with them. We have keep everyone at a very safe distance so that we can control our own lives, right? And some people are allowed to be in an inner circle, but most people are kind of kept on the fringe. And I think that's probably always been the case. Like, humans haven't changed. Just the technologies that we use have changed. And so, it just begs the question. I sort of have a little bit not symmetrical thing happening here. Do you see? I've got two of these little I need to get on camera better. Two of these little loop-de-loops, but it's not symmetrical. So, whoopsie. Anyway, just gonna make it do. Anyway, I think in our desire to keep people at that safe distance, we actually have become lonelier. And so reaching out the way that I do with these rocks is shockingly powerful for both me, in terms of the feeling that I get of positivity that I get from doing that for people, and shockingly powerful in the impact that it has on others. For something so simple, there is something powerful and magical about it. So if you're contemplating kind of getting into, I'm going to put another set of these little petals right here because I think it'll look good. If you're thinking about kind of getting into rock painting, and you were contemplating why do they do it and how do they do it, etc., I say go for it. Absolutely. For whatever reason you would like. And if you're not sure if you like it, then give it a shot. There, it's coming along, right? It's as good as any mandala coloring book is, but it just is a different style of doing it. So if you were to give this to your sister, and she likes to color or paint, she can use paint pens also, and or this can be colored in with, if it were white, it could be colored in with Sharpies, but colored Sharpies don't work on black. So what does work for some reason is painting on top of the white. Coloring on top of the white. So you can actually take a colored pencil like this and color on the white anywhere you want. And that works. So I've done it where I've done like scratching like this, then take a brown one, then take a yellow one, then take a red one, and sort of create a mishmash of colors on a design, and it looks beautiful. So, experiment. I have not thought of all the ways to have fun with this. One thing that would look great would be if I brought some other color in here and fixed this blobby flower. I don't like it, but maybe you like it. Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about today. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to tell you relative to kind of getting into rock painting, if that's what you're here to learn about. And I mentioned where you get rocks, and that the answer to that is wherever you can. Some people buy them. I would never buy rocks. I think the world is, we have enough rocks for everybody to have the rocks they need. And so I think you can just find rocks. But I don't like to take them from, business parks where someone else has paid to put them there. To me, those rocks are off limits. That's almost like they're someone's property. Now, again, I kind of have a fundamental belief that the rocks belong to the earth, not to us. So the fact that we're actually even selling it is weird, but we do. So, I don't really want to get in trouble with anybody for stealing their rocks. That's not what I'm about. So anyway, if you can't find rocks outside where you live, there just aren't any, like you live in grasslands and things where there just aren't any rocks, you can buy them from craft stores. You can order them on the internet. Of course, they're not very lightweight, therefore you do have to pay shipping a lot, but they're around. So be creative about finding rocks and ask other people to look for you. Maybe there's somebody that lives by a pond or a lake. I find river rocks are the best, really nice big pebbles. I've done a lot of paintings on those types of rocks, like landscape paintings and things like that. Then I talked to you about what kind of paint I use, and I talked to you about where to hide them. The only guidance I have for you about where to hide them is not to hide them inside of stores or public places where people don't know if taking it is stealing. So that's never fun. For them, they don't take it because they think it belongs to the store, or it's a prop, or it's for sale, or whatever. They're not clear about why it's there. The exceptions to that might be like the library. I think hiding rocks in the stacks of a library is just super, super cool. So I would totally do that. Maybe some schools, but I wouldn't want to put rocks in the school. That doesn't make any sense. Most schools would say rocks don't belong indoors, Maybe in the art department, I don't know, whatever. I'm talking about hiding them, so I put them oftentimes. I'm a Pokemon player, and so Pokemon Go. So when we go on our Poke walks, we hide them all over the neighborhood. So I'm just really trying to make this a fun rock to color in, and it's also fun for me to do, just to design it just like that. And if I were to go and hide this in the neighborhood, somebody would be excited to find it. And 3 or 4 people might pass it up, look at it and say, I don't even like that rock, and it doesn't speak to them, and it means nothing to them. And that's okay, because this rock is not for them. This rock is for the person who picks it up and likes it and has a positive feeling about it. That is who I made it for. So there we go. Alrighty. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be with me and check this out. I hope it's been helpful to you. If you had any questions about rock painting that I haven't answered for you, please put them in the comments. I'd love to know what they are. And if you'd like me to do other things, show you how I did some of these others. I do a lot of different types of rock painting, and here's some floral types of things. I do a little bit of writing. This says, learn to love your own company. But anyway, I'm happy to share any more that you'd find interesting, or if you'd like to see me demonstrate something that you've seen for sale on my Etsy site, or anything else, I'm happy to share those things. So give me a comment or a shout, and also please like and subscribe. I really appreciate that support. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.